Today I'm going to answer the question, why do people buy these BMWs, even knowing that they become endless money pits? Okay, they're sharp looking cars, no doubt in that. They handle really well, and this particular one, it's a 2008 335i, puts out over 300 horsepower because it's got twin turbos, 2 turbochargers on it. Check this out. Underneath the hood, underneath all this plastic crap, there's a 6-cylinder engine with 2 turbochargers that puts out 301 horsepower. They really go. There's no arguing it. They drive fast. They handle really well. They're also endless money pits. Okay, we'll start out with this car. The first owner paid $44,500 for it, and in his 45,000 miles of owning the car, spent over $10,000 on maintenance. If you notice, this baby no longer has the run flat tires. It came with run flat tires. Guess what? Every time you hit a big bump in a pothole, and there's tons around here in Houston, it would end up cracking the very expensive aluminum wheels that had to be replaced. Rode like crap. Now they handle perfectly fine, but you buy a car like this for handling, speed, and ride comfort. The owner now, he put on these normal tires, not the run flat. And truth be told, it rides a lot better. But then again, that was after the original owner spent a ton of money on wheels as they cracked and broke. You don't pay that kind of money for a car and expect the wheels to crack. I still got the original wheels of my 94 Celica. You know, I have hit stuff, and sometimes they bent some, but I'd bend them back again. I've never bought a rim for any of my cars. Now, getting 301 horsepower out of this straight 6-cylinder engine, turbochargers are on it. It's got a very fancy fuel injection system, but unfortunately on BMWs, that stuff breaks all the time. And look at the working room, or should I say, lack of working room. There's very little working room on these vehicles. And everything is plastic, not just the covers. All these plastic hoses going to the radiator and to the turbochargers. That stuff all rots and cracks as they age. So you might think, oh, it's just plastic. Hey, plastic is cheap. Well, in this case, it may be cheaply built, but it's not cheaply priced. Plus, some of the stuff, if it breaks on the bottom side of the engine, you got to take half the car off to get to it if you can even see where the leak is in the first place. These things become endless repair nightmares as they age. Now my customer here is the second owner. The original owner paid $44,500 for the car, then spent 10 grand in repairs and maintenance the first 45,000 miles of ownership. Well, my customer bought it with 45,000 miles on it for $13,500. Look at the money the original guy lost. Whoa, I'd be sweating bullets losing that kind of money in a stupid car. Even he said he's thinking about getting rid of it because he's had to spend thousands on repairs in the 20,000 miles that he's driven the car. So why do people buy them? Well, it's the lure of BMWs. That's why. They're beautiful looking. They're fast. They drive really nice when they are working. Well, here's another reason people buy them. Watch this. Looks like a hardtop, but voila! It magically hides itself away. Takes a few seconds, but it's rather ingenious. I must give them that. Look at that. Now what do you have? A beautiful convertible. And you don't have all that nonsense of the rag top blowing in the wind when it's up and leaking. You got a full metal roof, and then when you get bored with that, guess what? Push another button. It puts itself back up. As you can see, it doesn't take all that much time. It is a good idea to have the car stopped when you do it, though. You don't want the wind blowing it back. Oh, the ingenious Germans. Now, of course, all that technology comes at a price, and the price is when it breaks, whoo, you start throwing out $1,000 bills left, right, and center to fix the thing. And being modern German technology, yes, they do break. I guess their theory is, if you gotta ask how much it costs to fix the roof, Now it does have a good transmission. 6-speed German-made automatic. They made over 7 million variants of it for various cars. It is a good transmission. But unfortunately you can't get it in any modern cars because they stopped making that unit in 2014. 6 years ago they stopped making those units. But those 6-speed ZF transmissions were pretty good units. As much economy as you're going to get out of a 301 horsepower dual turboed engine. Most people aren't going to get such hot gas mileage driving this thing because they're going to be driving it fast. This one is rated at 17 miles a gallon in the city, but you're not going to get that. When I had one for a week, I averaged about 7 miles a gallon in the thing. I was driving it hard, mind you, but hey, with those dual turbos and 301 horsepower, if you like putting your pedal to the metal, you can get horrible gas mileage. So I can understand why people buy them, at least emotionally. Kind of like the apple in the Garden of Eden. Tempting. But if you take a bite of this BMW apple, odds are your universe is going to turn into an endless money pit universe in a relatively short period of time. If not right away, assuming you're buying a used one with some mileage on it. So in the case of this beautiful BMW hardtop, yet convertible, be careful what you wish for. You might get it. This particular one is a 2016 Chrysler 200S. Now back in 2016, these things listed for $26,000. To me, I don't know anybody would buy one. They could have gotten a 4-cylinder Camry for $1,000 less. But of course, this is an Italian design. This is after Fiat bought Chrysler. In Europe, they called these things Lancias for that famous line of Italian sports cars. But of course, here in the United States, people who know Lancias know that they were absolute piles of junk that fell apart, cost a fortune to maintain, and yeah, they were sporty, but man, they did not hold up over time. Now, they started selling these Chrysler 200s in the United States in 2010, and they stopped selling them in 2017. 2012, they sold over 125,000 of these 200s in the United States. They stopped selling them in 2017. That was the last year they sold them. And in that year, they only sold 18,000. To me, it's amazing that they could sucker so many people to buy so many of them when they were such low quality vehicles to begin with. Because they had a lot of Fiat stuff in it. Fiat's not known for high quality. In this case, it's got the 4-cylinder engine, which they call the World 2.4, because they can't say it's an American engine because it isn't. It's an Italian engine. They're kind of sneaky in that respect. You can see on the door, it says vehicle made in USA. And by made, they mean put together. The engine, it wasn't made in the United States. Like I say, it's an Italian engine. This is the automatic transmission, which are known to be weak. And as you can see here, it contains that new ridiculous refrigerant R1234YF, which can cost over $100 a pound when it leaks and you got to refill it or got to work on the system. EPA, anti-pollution type stuff. They get brownie points from the government for using that stuff, but I've got a whole video on that that explains why it's kind of a joke. Some of the manufacturers have gone to it now. To me, bad move, really. It's a bad move. Now, if you look at the car itself, it's pretty stylish. Italians are good at making stylish stuff. And it's got the usual bucket seats that are pretty comfortable. Nothing wrong with that. And it's got the usual back seat that there's some room in. Seats flip down so you can use the trunk to carry more stuff by flopping the seats down. Now, for something as modern as this, you can see the dash is kind of dated. Rather dated. It's not particularly swanky. Now, this particular one's only got 50,000 miles on it, so you know it hasn't really been tested out that many miles. But even with that low mileage, you can hear the engine's pretty noisy. Typical for Italian engines as they wear out. They make a lot of noise. They're not as quality control built as, say, the Camry. Like I say, you could have bought a brand new Camry for $5 grand less than this back in 2016. Why would you have bought this? It's beyond me. Now, this thing puts out 173 horsepower, but the Camry 4-cylinder, it puts out 5 more horsepower than that, 178. So it's not even like this is a zippy Italian car that's faster. It's actually slower. Now, 6 months after this particular model, they stopped making them and selling them in the United States. So it's no surprise to me, kind of surprised me that it lasted even as long as it did, even though that was a relatively short run. Because let's face it, you heard that engine noise. 50,000 miles, this engine makes more noise than my Celica does with 240,000 miles on it. Quality? Not Fiat's known. And safety? They got a 1-star side pole. They got nothing on the side. They're one of the lower rated by the National Highway Traffic Safety Association for safety in crashes. They look cool with the dual exhaust. Why it has a dual exhaust on a 4-cylinder engine is beyond me. But They do look good. They're kind of like most Italian things. They really look good, but when you get underneath the hood, things aren't what they seem. Now, these 200s are the replacement for the Sebrings. And if you know anything about Sebrings, it's kind of like Chrysler went from the Sebring Fire into the 200 frying pan. And to add insult to injury, I'm doing a brake job on this thing today. And there's like 6 different brake pads this thing could possibly have. The Italians, do they standardize things? No, we do not care about standardization. They're not organized like the Germans or the Japanese, where you can take the VIN number of the car and find out exactly which pads are on it. I'm gonna have to take it all apart when I'm doing the brake jobs, bring the brake pads with me to a place that says, well, we have most of the different ones. There's one we don't have. So by the time I'm done filming this, taking it apart and bringing the pads, they should have every possible combination so I can match it up. But really, do you want to have a car like that? You should just be able to say, here's the car, here's the VIN number, I need the parts. And yet people still wonder, why is Chrysler Fiat having problems? Well, because of the root of the problems, which is Italian-based manufacturing. Combined with Chrysler's lack of knowledge, they're not exactly a shining example of a great corporation. We taxpayers had to bail them out a while ago. So, and if you do a little research on the problems with these 200s, they have engine problems, they have transmission problems, they have electrical problems. Oh, what a surprise, an Italian car with electrical problems. That's why years ago we mechanics used to call Fiats "Fix It Again, Tony," because their electrical systems were absolute disaster areas. It truly amazes me that Chrysler was able to sell as many of these things as they did in that 10-year lifespan of the model. I guess it goes to show that good looks often works when people are trying to sell something. Why do they have so many good-looking models in advertisements? I guess there's a point to that. But really, when the good looks aren't backed up by quality manufacturing, really, what's the point? It's a car. You're driving for transportation, not a work of art that you're looking at in a museum. Why I wouldn't buy a Kia. In this case, it's a 2008 Kia Sportage. Now, the main reason I'm not a Kia fan is because over time, they just don't hold up like better made cars do. As an example, this baby's only got 50,952 miles on it. But when I turn on the AC, no cold air. The AC compressor's already broken. And just to show the general cheapness of the vehicle, here's the sun visor. It won't stay up. It's flopping down. It's just a general show of how cheaply made these things are. If I had bought a car and at 50,000 miles, the AC compressor went out, goodbye. I would never buy another one, and I would be furious about it. Now you might think, why are people buying these things? Well, they cost less. But if you really price the differential, it isn't all that much today. For example, a 2019 Kia Sportage, it's only less than $2,000 less than the base Toyota RAV4. Now, if you go back to when this thing was new, 2008, the base price of this, $6,000 less than the base price of a Toyota RAV4. But now, it's less than $2,000 differential. So, it'd actually make more sense to buy one of these things back then. You were saving a reasonable amount of money, but today, you really aren't. And for less than $2,000, believe me, I'd buy a RAV4 long before I'd buy one of these things. Now, I've had customers with Kias that had engine problems, transmission problems, electronic problems, in this case, air conditioning compressor problems, stuff that you really don't see in the Toyotas. But I've also had customers that were relatively happy with the Kias. And the reason behind that was they didn't keep their cars all that long, or they didn't drive that many mileage. One of my customers has a 10-year-old Kia, but she's only got 60,000 miles on it. She hasn't had any real problems with it. But she's not driving it much. She was happy with the price then, and she recently got rid of the thing because she always wanted a Ford Mustang. So she got a V6 Ford Mustang, the cheapest price one she could find, and she's happy with that. But then again, if for the next 10 years she only puts on 60,000 miles, hey, you can pretty much buy anything outside of Fiat products and you won't have too many problems. Now on the plus side, these Sportages, hey, they got a lot of room inside. They got the split seats that lay back so you can carry more stuff. Asian style roof rack for extra stuff. Reasonable amount of space in the back seat. And the usual accessories of power windows, power steering, airbags. Now granted, these Sportages, they are like a small truck. They don't ride that well. And even this one's only got 60,000 miles. Hey, the struts on it already are worn out and it bounces around a lot. And if you find a low enough mileage used one, they don't have such high resale value. You compare the resale value of one of these to a RAV4. Sure, the RAV4 sometimes will be 3 or 4 times as expensive as the Kia is, if you can find a low mileage one. But I mean, even there, I'm warning you, this baby's got 50,000 and the compressor's shot already. And of course, even though they're a smaller SUV, they're still an SUV. My customer gets about 18 miles a gallon in town on this thing, and in the mid-20s on the highway, until you get into stuff like direct injection, turbochargers, CVT transmissions. And of course, when you put all that technology in a car, there's no saying how long it's going to last. From my experience, they don't last nearly as long as the non-turbocharged engines, as the non-gasoline direct engines that have regular fuel injection. You add that technology, extra pressures, things are just going to wear out faster. But the downside of this 2008 is it's a 4-cylinder engine, but it's still got the rubber timing belt that you got to change every once in a while. Heck, my 2007 Toyota Matrix, even that back then, has a timing chain, and those things basically last forever. As long as you change your oil, the chain is inside all that oil, stays lubricated, and they generally last just as long as the engine. I've seen those things with 300,000 miles, and they're still original. Now, there's no way you're going to get 300,000 miles out of a rubber timing belt, one of these things. It's something to think about. They just are cheaper made vehicles. There's no arguing that. But heck, being cheaper made vehicles, they're not selling them that much cheaper anymore, as I said before. Yeah, $6,000 cheaper in 2008, but 2019, there was less than a $2,000 difference between the basic RAV4 and the basic Sportage. I definitely would take a RAV4 over one of these if the only thing I was saving was less than $2,000 on a new one. But as I said, if you're a gambling man or woman and you want to buy a used one, these things go a lot cheaper than the Toyotas do, and you find a low mileage one, hey, it could be a great knock-around car. Then you're only out that small amount of money instead of a whole bunch of money saved you bought a brand new car. You can see it bounces quite a bit. Bought a car with 50,000 miles and the struts were all worn out and the air conditioning compressor broke. I'll tell you, I'd never buy another one of these things myself. Now, Kia, at least in the United States, does spend a small fortune advertising their cars. And yeah, their sales have been up. Sort of like people can be fooled. They see advertisements, they think, oh, well, those are Asian cars, those are great cars, you know, I'll just buy one. Do a little research before you buy. If you're gonna get a RAV4 for less than $2,000 more than this thing, buy that. Don't even think about buying one of these. Since the price gap is shortening, but the quality gap, as far as I'm concerned, is still pretty far apart, I see no reason to go out and buy a modern Kia. Dodge, Grand Caravan, whatever you want to call it. How the heck did they sell so many of them when they were so poorly made? Now, they've been making these things since 1984, and they now say that they're going to stop making them in 2020. What amazes me is that they made them and sold them for that long, considering the poor quality that was in them. They have a history of some of the worst automatic transmissions known to man. I had one customer, he went through 4 automatic transmissions. Now, he had it for 12 years, but still. 3 of them crapped out, and then when he was on his 4th one, he eventually just sold it. So I don't know what happened after that. I had one customer who was buying his 4th one, and I said, you had so many troubles with the previous 3. Why on earth are you buying another one? He said, oh, the wife likes to take the kids to the soccer matches, and this time I'm buying this used one, but I'm getting this long warranty on it that I'm paying for. Well, when I checked it out for him used, I said, I can hear the air conditioning compressor groaning, that's gonna go out. And about 4 months later, it blew and stopped blowing cold, but the warranty did pay for that. He showed me the warranty. I said, well, it'll cover it, so if you wanna buy it. And I've seen them with electrical problems where they don't run right, and nobody can figure out what's wrong in the computer system or the wiring system. So how did they do it? Well, a large marketing budget and a lot of space. We go inside. Comfy enough seats, utilitarian. Tons of room in the back seat. And in this case, even more seating. It's got 3rd row seats. There's a reasonable amount of room to store stuff. And for a van, they got a cushy ride. This V6 engine puts out 180 horsepower. It's a 3.3 liter. No race car, but it's got plenty enough oomph to make it go. And on the highway, it gets decent gas mileage. This one gets 24 miles a gallon, so it can go 480 miles on the highway between Phillips. When they are running, they're good cruising vans. They were one of the first non-ugly vans. They had some style to them. Chrysler has always been that way. They make stylish looking cars. You really don't know what's inside. They broke down with grim regularity as they age. Now this particular one was driven by an elderly gentleman most of the time. It's got over 100,000 miles on it, and it's 14 years old. It's still in decent shape. But even this older thing has the horrendous driver-controlled heat, passenger-controlled heat and AC. These Chrysler systems have histories of serious problems and very expensive repairs as they age. And this particular one has a really bizarro problem. If you have the air conditioner on recirculation, the temperature gauge goes to hot, but then when you take it off recirc and put it to normal, it stops overheating on the gauge. I'm assuming this is an electrical problem. I'm going to check that out later, but it's just symptomatic of how these things have long-haul electrical problems as they age. But they do have cup holders all over the place. They have creature comforts. Even in the back seats here, they got plenty of headroom. They got air conditioning controls, so you can be cool in the back seat when the air conditioning is still working, and go all the way back. Even the third rows have air conditioning vents on them. So these babies sold themselves on creature comforts and on the space of what they can carry around. But I even had a customer, it's funny to laugh at now because nobody was hurt, but they were driving when they hit a bump and the airbags went off and whacked the driver in the face. And they were lucky that they were just going down an old farm country road and there wasn't anybody else around in the middle of the day, so he didn't panic too much and he just slowed down and pulled over to the side of the road. And luckily for him, there was a bar just down the street, so he went in and had a stiff drink or two and then let his friend drive it home. If you don't pay much for it, hey, I got customers who bought these things for $800, $1,000. And had them for a few years without putting too much money until either the transmission or the engine started going out. Then they either junked them or they drove them till they wouldn't run at all. Then they junked them. So you want the truth about these Grand Caravans? Hey, they sold them for a long time. A lot of people like the creature comforts and just didn't understand about the mechanical unreliability of them as they age. So in that respect, they fit in perfectly with our society, the throwaway society. So if it breaks when it's 4 or 5 years old, go get another one. Well, that's not my philosophy with vehicles, but it served Chrysler pretty well with these. They sold a lot of these vans. And they also made a lot of money fixing the transmissions in them. I got a friend who's a Chrysler automatic transmission specialist at a dealership. He's made tons of money fixing the transmissions in these things. He absolutely loves them. Why Mercedes-Benz often turn them into money pit machines if you drive them for any serious length of time. Now take this beautiful looking Mercedes. It runs good, rides good, but when I hook up this fancy scan tool I have, look at all the red trouble codes that it has. It's just got red trouble codes all over the place. Okay, I counted them all. There are 25 trouble codes that show problems this car now has. So yes, this beautiful looking, and I must admit, beautiful riding vehicle has already 25 separate problems that exist in the car because of all the crazy computer controls that they put in them. Now everything on this Mercedes is practically run by a computer module. As you can see here, there is a suspension control module that operates the rear suspension. There's a computer just for that. And if you're curious, just that module costs $595. They also have computer modules that operate the lighting system, that operate the stereo system, that operate the transmission, and they're all equally as expensive. And take a look at the one shock absorber for the front right. If you go over here, it costs $1,190. That's the price of one shock absorber. And if you look at the labor for putting that shock absorber in, one side runs 2.3 hours labor. And when I called a local Mercedes dealer here in Houston, they charge $160 an hour labor. So there's a lot of money changing these parts out. And okay, if all this complexity lasted a long time, didn't break, that'd be one thing. But hey, as we've already found with my little computer here, this baby's got 25 problems already. Apart from just bad designs. As you can see the front rotor here, there's a giant ridge on the edge. And here's why it occurred. For some strange reason, Mercedes-Benz keep making brake pads that don't cover the entire rotor. Now, if this was a Toyota or a Ford or whatever, they make the pads the right size so they fit over the whole rotor and wear it evenly. But not Mercedes. They deliberately make the pads so they don't cover the whole rotor. So the rotors wear on the inside and leave a tiny ridge the whole way around. So when it's time to change the brake pads, you have to change the brake rotors with it, or the new pads will hit this ridge and squeak like mad. And of course, like Toyota, Ford, Chevy, you want a brake pad that covers the whole rotor. The more surface area the brake pad touches, the more heat dissipation you'll have and the better your brakes will work. This bad design that always creates a ridge on the outside and on the inside here too, just requires new rotors every time you do a brake job if you don't want noise, so they can make a higher profit doing the job. Look at this. They're recessed way inside here. So if something ever goes wrong, it's almost impossible to work on them without ruining the wheel. The lug nuts are so far recessed in, if anything ever goes wrong and they get stripped, you're going to spend a small fortune fixing something as dumb as a lug nut. Heck, and don't even get me talking about these stupid low-profile tires. They're great for a racetrack. They corner great and all that. But driving them in the city, look what happens. Not only does the rim get eaten up, but the tires get chewed up all the time because they don't have much sidewall. They'll hit curbs, bumps on the road will make them smash holes in them. Planned obsolescence has gone berserk with these Germans. Perhaps one of my favorite craziness is this. Watch. You open the door, the window automatically opens itself a little crack here. And then when you close it, it automatically closes itself the rest of the way. System breaks, as break they all do. Then you spend a small fortune to fix it so the window can go down and then go up the hole when you close it, not go down and stay there and get wet when it's raining outside. Now they claim that's to save this rubber weather stripping here from getting torn when you open and close the door with the window up, but really, Celco doesn't have that, and the rubber is still perfectly fine and not torn, and there's no leaks inside when I'm driving. Yes, the Germans are masters of over-engineering, if anyone is. But if you enjoy riding around in fast, smooth money pits, go right ahead and buy one. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.